This is a 1989 marathon, EZGO Marathon, and just bought it, first cart ever, for us to go camping. And I'm just doing some stuff to it. So one of the things was bought some wheels, and figured while I'm replacing all these panels and have everything torn down, what better time to put a lift kit on than now, right? So I don't have to go back through and do all the stuff, and while everything is accessible. So that's what I did. And there's not a lot of information online, almost none. You can find a PDF, I think, from Buggies Unlimited. I think it was Buggies Unlimited. That it's just 1 or 2 pages, and it's old, and the pictures aren't very good, but it was enough to help me. Online, there's hardly anything. There's one guy that made a video that's kind of like what I'm about to do, where it doesn't show it step by step, but it's just going to show you after the fact. But I think this will help some of you. So this was a, I think it was called an economy lift kit, and true to its name, it wasn't very expensive. 4-inch kit from Amazon. I think I paid 70 bucks. So let's do the rear. I'll show you since I'm standing right here. So it comes, front and rear kits, or front and rear are the same with what it comes with. It comes with a shock extender. It's like C-shaped piece, shock extender, and a riser. It's just this, looks like a capital I. So what do you gotta do? You take the top bolt loose on the rear shock, and your shock extenders go at the top. They don't go at the bottom. So take that loose, unbolt. There's 4 bolts down here on your axle. This top plate is original. That plate is mounted on top of this piece on your axle. Take those 4 bolts out. There's a U-bolt, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So you'll knock the factory U-bolts out, trash them, you're not gonna use them again. Jack up the rear. When we did it, because we took the shocks loose, my neighbor and I, the whole axle actually just dropped. So that was fine, it's no big deal. So axle was on the ground. We went ahead and bolted the riser to the axle while it was on the ground, and then we just slid a jack underneath this, lined it up, and then raised it to the bottom side of the leaf spring. Your leaf spring goes on top of the riser, and then this thing is just a sandwich plate. Remember, this is the factory plate. You're gonna have this little nut in the middle. Just make sure that they line up, okay? U-bolts go on the bottom, and then there's like these, they're square. It's like a 90-degree curve, like a C-bolt or something. I don't know the official name, but these things, okay. They didn't want to go through the holes originally. It was a little too wide. So it's up to you how you want to work around that. I have a giant set of channel locks, and I just squeezed them in just a little bit, and it was enough to narrow the width, I guess, and then go through the holes. And then, you know, that top plate sandwiches it down and ain't going nowhere. Then you mount your shock extender. I want to say everything was 9/16, almost everything. There was one thing that was a 5/8. Shock extender, it opens to the outside, and then just bolt your shock back in. That was super easy, okay? All right, and then for the front was a little more challenging. So for the front, again, shock extenders, risers right here. My kit came with no instructions at all, just a bag of bolts and these things, so kind of left to my own devices. So first thing, I put new shocks in while I was doing this. So if you're not putting new shocks in, just unbolt your shock from the bottom, okay? But I took the whole thing out because I put new ones in. So get it up on jack stands, take your tires off so you can work. This is factory, right? That's for where your shock went originally. Shock extender is going to go on top of that. So in the back, shock extenders go on the top. In the front, they go on the bottom. And these open to the inside. All right? So this is where those plates are. Your risers are going to go here. This is the factory plate again. There's that nut in the middle. You're just going to take it off. You're going to unbolt it, take the plate off, stick your riser on, bolt it from the bottom, keep everything loose until you're satisfied that everything's lined up in the way you want it. Bolt those in, and then stick your factory plate back on top, bolt it in. Easy enough, okay? Same thing on that side. Remember, these open to the inside. Let me try and give you shots of everything here. Now, this was the hard part. This is your drag link and the drag link arm. Okay. Your cart now, if you have one of these, this piece is going from the bottom up, just like that one is. See how it goes from the bottom up? And it's got that cotter pin. So there's a cotter pin and that little king nut. Pull the pin, take the nut off. That was easy. Pull the pin, take the nut off. What I did, because it wouldn't come out, it's been here forever, for, I don't know, 30-something years, probably. Back the nut off, leave it near the top, smack it with a sledge. That way you're not damaging the threads, you're hitting the top of that king nut, it pops out. I took this thing all the way off. What you're supposed to do is, because you're raising everything, it changes the geometry of the cart. This thing, instead of coming from the bottom, you need to rotate it, and it needs to come down from the top. So you've lifted it. You know, originally it would be down here, so you're kind of gaining some height because everything moved up because of those risers here. This is a 4-inch kit, if I didn't say so. Hardest part of all this was we could not get this thing to turn. It was frozen, man. You can see where we chewed it with vice grips on both sides. This piece, it just threads into this, right? This is a jam nut. Couldn't do it. Vice grips, different types of wrenches. I used a PB blaster. I used a torch and heated it up. Different leveraging tools. At some point, you just had to say F it, right? And break it loose somehow. So I just kept soaking it in oil. So, and also what I did, let me backtrack, is when I was doing all this other work to the cart, I knew I was going to be doing this. Every day I would come out here and I would spray all these bolts. I would spray everything with penetrating oil every day. So this thing's been getting the treatment for about 6 days and soaking in. So everything was really easy to get off. And even this was easy to get out. I just couldn't rotate this. So finally, vice grips on this, heat, PB blaster, and then I want to say I stuck I mean, it was a big wrench, like a 7/8 around the threads of this, and I just cranked on that because we were trying to bite onto this with vice grips and rotate that, and it wouldn't hold. I believe there's a specialized tool for this, and if there is, I'm not aware of it, or I certainly don't have one, but it won't hold. It just wouldn't rotate. So, and again, a lot of that is because nothing on this thing has been touched probably since 1989. So when I put the rounded end of the 7/8 wrench, box wrench, around the threads, vice grip here, and just as hard as I could, it finally broke loose, and it was slow going, but it did. And then at that point, I could rotate it. So remember, it's going to come up from the bottom to begin with. It needs to rotate and go down from the top. Now, it won't go through there. So you're going to beat it with a hammer and all that stuff. It won't go back through. You have to take a 1/2-inch drill bit. So I had like a black oxide metal drill bit. this thing originally, it's tapered, I guess, for it, and it's made for the threads to come from the bottom up. Since you're trying to go from the top down, it's not made for that. So you take a 1/2 inch drill bit and just go from the top and just slowly work your way down. So I just kept drilling, squirt some blaster in there to keep it lubed up, and I don't know, it took maybe a minute, and it'll go all the way through. As soon as it goes through, you're golden. So this thing's rotated now. Make sure your jam nut, if you loosened it, is tightened back down on both ends, and then just pop it in, and you're done. So that was, it took a lot longer than it should have just because of this. I mean, I want to say we spent probably 45 minutes on that. So anyway, this is what it looks like. It's hard to tell because I haven't buttoned everything back up yet, but 4-inch lift. Okay, this lift goes under the leaf spring, or I guess that's a leaf spring, yeah, right here. Underneath it, that leaf spring goes on top, and then you sandwich that plate. Make sure that the nut lines up in the circle. When you take everything off on here, you're left with a nut just kind of like, I don't know, it's welded to the frame, I guess. It would spin, but there's no way to take it off. So you just take the riser, and there's a hole in the bottom of this, and just stick it on that nut just so that it's kind of in place. So I think this should cover pretty much everything. Hopefully it helps, because there were really no close-up videos where anybody spent any length of time showing how to do it. What I did is, once I got all this shit put together, then I took my jack and went back under, and then I slowly raised it back up, jacked it until the shocks lined up. So what I put the top in first, I tightened it down, I left it loose at the bottom, and then as I'm raising the axle here, then I just lined it up at that point. Like lifted until it was inside the hole, and then tighten it down. So that should be good on a 4-inch lift. It took me forever to figure out the wiring for this, but that could be a whole other video. So let me know if you got any questions. I do hope it helps. Remember, in the rear, extenders on top, front, extenders on bottom. In the back, they open to the outside. On the front, they open to the inside. Square bolts on top going down, rounded U-bolts on the bottom around the axle going up. Oh, last thing. The bag's gonna have like a mixed number of these bolts. I want to say they were like 10, 8, and 4, or 10, 8, and 2. I don't know. The two single bolts, the short ones, those go to the shock extenders in the front, and then everything else goes in the back. So there's no bolts back here, loose bolts, except for the shock extenders. So just these two. Everything else are those U and C bolts. And then up here, you know that these will all be the same. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, right? And then lock washers. And then you've got these two right there. So let me know if you got any questions.